they're not arguing with China trade. And I think that's, with all the things that they are arguing about, that's not one of them. Right. And so there's a case to be made that the strategy of pursuing tariffs has been, all in all, pretty broad-based success.
And hey, Jeff, let me turn you quickly to our own capital markets. You've got some experience in the IPO market. Of course, Cowen, a key underwriter, typically for smaller or mid-sized companies. But what do you make of the resistance amongst investors to the WeWork IPO?
Yeah, so I can't really discuss that one in particular, but I think you can actually talk about what's happening with some of the bigger tech names. I just think investors are being, public company investors are saying, listen, we need to actually have a real conversation about valuation. And I think that's actually the health of the public markets, is to do that. So if there's a concern that I have, it's about all of the private capital that's crowded into technology trades without there being an ultimate validation of that value in the public markets, which I do think that the public markets actually give you the ultimate determiner of value. And so, whether it's that name or other names, I just think when they come to market, the public market investors now have a forum for giving very direct feedback on where we would want to own that. And so that's what you're probably seeing there, and probably some of the other
they want a clearer path to profitability, and sooner, it would seem, than some of these companies are willing to give them.
Well, I think if you look at what's happened with Uber and Lyft and a bunch of these other folks that continue to spend money, I think there's some question on the part of public company investors. Listen, I also think public company investors are savvy. There are limited areas where there's growth. Generally speaking, what we've done and where we've seen growth, it's been with companies that have eliminated middlemen or have done some things to actually create efficiencies. And so, at the end of the day, public company investors understand that in the real world, you actually have to be able to show a clear path to a sustainable business model. I don't think that's an unrealistic ask on the part of public company investors.
All right, Jeff Solomon, CEO of Cowen, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
When we come back this morning, got a shakeup in the wireless service space. We'll hear from Altice USA's CEO on the company's new unlimited plan and, of course, on the overall media landscape. As we go to break, take a look at some of the top performing names on the Dow this morning. Cat, JPM, Walgreens Boots. We're back in just a moment.
This CNBC program is sponsored by PIMCO.
As a small business owner, making payroll was stressful. I was always looking for quick access to funds. Now, I use Bluevine. Bluevine figured out small business lending. It's fast and it's simple.
Bluevine offers flexible credit lines up to $250,000. Apply online and get a decision in minutes. Access cash on demand and only pay for what you use.
Bluevine gave me
3 times more hires than any other job site. See beyond the resume with Indeed. Post your next job at Indeed.com/skills and try skill tests for free.
It was a wild day out there.
In a volatile market.
Look at today's action. Nothing trumps rates.
Put your money to work.
I think it's a buy.
Fast Money, 5 p.m. Eastern on CNBC.
CNBC Evolve, transforming companies for the future. September 24th in Chicago. Strategies for embracing change and staying competitive in an age of disruption. Valuable lessons learned from top executives on the front lines. Register now at cnbcevents.com/evolve. Brought to you by these sponsors.
At Credible.com, we've helped tens of thousands of people save money by refinancing their student loans. In 3 minutes, we'll get you actual rates from multiple lenders. We could save you hundreds of dollars a month.
Visit Credible.com to see how much you could save.
I got things I want to do, but student loans were holding me back. Credible.com helped me save $600 a month with a great rate. Now I can go do what I want to do.
Visit Credible.com to see how much you could save on your student loans.
Okay, I picked out my dream car. Now's the really fun part. Choosing the color, the wheels, the interior, everything exactly how I want it. Here's the thing. Just because I configured this car online doesn't mean it really exists in a dealership. But with TrueCar, I get real pricing on actual cars in my area. I see what others paid for them, and they show me the ones that match the car I want. So I know I can go to a TrueCar certified dealer, and it'll be right there waiting for me. Today, right now. This is TrueCar.
You can start just you and me. Altice USA breaking into the unlimited wireless sector. Altice Mobile is the service. It's $20 a month if you actually already take Altice Cable. It's $30 a month for non-Altice Cable subscribers, making it the lowest priced offering in the space. Dexter Goya is the CEO of Altice USA, also president of Altice as well, and he joins me now. Nice to have you here.
Nice to see you.
Good job ringing the opening bell. You got your people really yelling and screaming. Thanks for that. You got a lot of pushback on the conference call when you introduced this. Analysts were saying, can you really be profitable at $20 for your customers or $30? And you kept saying, yeah, we're not pricing this to undercut the market and lose money. Why are you confident you can make money?
Well, if you look at just the average usage of mobile customers today in the U.S., you're probably around 7 gigs per month. You know, with 7 gigs per month, if you've got the right price points in terms of what you're paying to rent, space effectively per gig, then you effectively can make money, right? So we're not in this business to go out there and lose money. We're pricing this at a gross profit positive. We obviously are going to have a little bit of losses in the first 12 months as we market, and we do have run some OpEx in there, but fundamentally, it's just really about the mathematics of volume. As we get to certain volume matrices, we're going to be very profitable.
How long do you think it'll take you to get to those matrices?
I think the question really is what's the initial response going to be? The initial response always has been already very strong. So, are we going to get there quicker, or are we going to get there a little bit later? But we've modeled it out over 12 months. But we'll see over the next couple of months as we really start launching our marketing campaign pretty actively over the next couple of weeks.
Well, how should I be viewing then others, my parent company amongst them, that are pricing their wireless service, for example, substantially higher? Are they just not getting it? Do they have MVNOs that aren't as favorable as your own?
Well, I think you should switch over to ours. That's what I would tell Brian and the rest of the crew. So, but in any case, I think the whole question really is the partnerships that you're able to set up. We also do have a different platform in that we're an infrastructure-based MVNO, as opposed to what you guys have at your parent company.
Can you explain to people what that means?
Yeah, it's really about more, we have our own core network. We control the SIM card. We're able to manage the traffic that goes on and off the Wi-Fi network more accurately and seamlessly. That allows us to be a lot more cost-effective in terms of how much we're paying to our roaming partners. Right, so those are just one of the basic features. Obviously, there's a bunch of other control features that we have when you have a infrastructure-based MVNO, but the basic one is that we have a better maintaining a cost control on what we're doing.
And should we view this, or should your investor base or future investors perhaps view this as another significant part of your business, one that will contribute significantly the same way that broadband and or video does?
Absolutely. We're in the business of continuing to drive simplicity, clarity, and better user experience. The whole thing about wireless today, you think you're wireless in your home, by the way, because everyone talks about Wi-Fi, right? So your entire experience on broadband is wireless. And so we need to be inside and outside the home and have the ubiquity of having the best service, clarity, simplicity for our customers. We're building this as a standalone profitable business. It may have ancillary benefits to our fixed line business going forward, but that's not priced in today to our business model. But we're certain that we will see some of that. But fundamentally, this is going to be a standalone pillar for our business, and we've got a good runway going forward in terms of time to think about other things, what we want to do with wireless.
Right, and learn about it. I mean, are you a believer that 5G will represent a significant challenge to those who bring a wire into the home when it's able to bring the speeds that at least we hear is possible?
I think it's going to be a complementary service as opposed to a challenging replacing service. The usage patterns that we're seeing from our fixed line broadband cable subscribers today are so much larger than wireless subscribers today. I also do think that 5G may end up cannibalizing some of the 4G services out there. So people have the wallet to spend on both. I don't think that there's going to be a full replacement necessarily of fixed. Maybe in certain parts, particularly in rural areas where the fixed broadband is poor, you'll see some 5G penetration. But if you speak to all of the wireless operators out there, they're not out there marketing that they're going to have a replacement service.
No, at least not yet. Not yet. Not yet. I mean, it may be in the future. Speaking of course, bringing broadband into the home, one of your competitors, it said, at least Charter and perhaps even others, are de-emphasizing the video business. Almost, they wouldn't say this, but I will, sort of pushing people off it because the higher margin broadband business is so much more important to them. You push back on that when analysts have said, well, are you de-emphasizing the video business?
No,
Why? Why wouldn't you want everybody just on broadband?
Because it's still a profitable business. Everyone is a broadband customer anyway. So our fundamental drive is to continue to get more wallet share and mind share from our customers. So today, if people are paying for video and it's a profitable business, maybe it's the margins are getting skinnier, but we'll continue to deliver profitable businesses to each one of our customers, and mobile is an example.
But video is falling off, right?
Video is not necessarily falling. We have a very unique footprint in that we're in the New York tri-state area, which is a heavy video usage. Lots of cultural diversity, lots of live professional sports teams, so the RSNs are critical, which are on the cable network and not on the vMVPDs, as an example. And then a very underpenetrated video market in our historical Suddenlink footprint, which has been competing historically with satellite. So we have kind of a weird effect insofar as we're actually quarter over quarter, we've had 6 quarters in a row of better video performance year over year. And we continue to see the trends.
You do continue to see those trends
as
well. The broadband business at this point, is there room for continued margin improvement, or do you feel like you've sort of optimized?
Well, I think on the pure broadband product, it's a very, very, very high gross margin product, right? So if you were just a broadband provider, the OpEx related to your business actually starts to get skinny down quite a bit because the customer service interventions become a lot less when you don't have video and you don't have telephony, and you don't have set-top boxes. So if you were just a pure broadband provider, to your point, yeah, your margins have a lot more movement. But we think overall our business continues, our core telecoms business continues to have margins.
And you've obviously, the stock has done very well this year in terms of how investors have responded to that view. You and Mr. Drahi, the chairman of Altice as well, took over Cablevision, Suddenlink. You're known as cost cutters, people who can come in, at least identify things that conceivably should be cut. Do you think this opportunity that Elliott sees at AT&T, big story this morning, is your sense, having at least done that at some of these companies, that there is a lot of low-hanging fruit to cut costs?
I didn't really pay attention exactly to the focus of the letter.
They're talking about a 300 basis point improvement in adjusted EBITDA margins over the next 3 years.
Listen, I think no matter what, when you are able to take a step back and you're an outside-looking inside investor, you fundamentally can see opportunities to do things, right? Particularly given that the management team has probably been there for a little bit of time and is used to the way things work over there. So I'm certain there's probably opportunities for them to do stuff. I don't know where it would be.
Right.
We don't know the business that well.
And finally, I mean, we know you sort of, at least for a while, as being an acquisitive company. Obviously, Suddenlink, Cablevision amongst the two that have contributed to your U.S. footprint. Are you guys done when it comes to acquisitions?
We'd love to do more. I think I've said that to you regularly. Cable is a good sector to consolidate. There still needs to be consolidation.
What's left, though, other than names that are too big? I mean, Charter is $90 billion market cap. Come on, you're not going to do that, are you?
We're not going to do anything other than focus on shareholder value for our shareholders right now. So I think, today the organic opportunities continue to be very large for us to create a lot of shareholder value. I think we've always talked about historically, can people team up? Can we buy smaller businesses? All those types of things. We're very, very flexible in terms of the opportunities we'll look at.
All right, back to wireless. $30 a month. I'm a non-Altice customer because I don't have where I am.
Find you a deal.
But I can, and my service is going to work. It's going to actually be good.
Be fantastic. It's Sprint and AT&T's network, along with supplemented with our network as well, right? So it's a fantastic network. We really are seeing an unbelievable response and great performance of it. So look forward to having you as a customer.
All right. Well,
and by the way, it's free international, right? 35 countries free international. You're not getting that $10.
Right, because of all your ownership stakes. Right, some of those otherwise. Dexter, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Dexter Goya, President or CEO of Altice USA. Carl, back to you.
David, thanks. When we come back, Florida's Attorney General Ashley Moody will join us exclusively. She's among the state AGs probing big tech on antitrust. Dow's up 82. Financials leading this morning as the 30-year yields at a 3-week high.
Look who's cheap. Moving from one rental home to another is so expensive.
Last time, we had to pay hundreds to move in, the first month's rent,
and then a big deposit. With Romans, it doesn't have to be like this.
It doesn't.
At Romans, you really can move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent.
And that's it.
Nothing more to add. Move in from just £36, plus your first month's rent. With Romans. No deposit.
No problem.
Romans, your trusted local property experts at romans.co.uk. Conditions and monthly fee apply.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nason and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI events.
It's time now for our ETF Spotlight, taking a look at the communication services sector ETF, ticker XLC, getting a slight boost this morning. Top holdings for the ETF mixed, but AT&T Holdings strong after Elliott Management announced a $3.2 billion stake in the company. AT&T on pace for its best day since July 2017 and its best year in over a decade. That stock now up more than 4%, guys.
Meantime, Juul and e-cigarettes facing major health concerns that could impact sales for big tobacco companies. Our Frank Holland joins us this morning with more on that. Morning, Frank.
Hey, good morning, Carl. You know, before vaping concerns surfaced, Big Tobacco had a plan C to debut another cigarette alternative, also designed to convert smokers. Heated tobacco is expected to make its U.S. debut this month with IQOS. The Philip Morris product will be sold by Altria domestically with a store in Atlanta to showcase this product and even educate consumers. Now, IQOS takes what looks like smaller cigarettes and then heats them to release nicotine as opposed to burning them. Sales of IQOS grew 37% last quarter globally compared to a 3.5% decline for traditional cigarettes. For Philip Morris, still, heated tobacco is only around 5% of the company's sales. IQOS received FDA approval in April, the regulator saying it has fewer toxic chemicals than traditional cigarettes. The company has a separate application for IQOS to be sold as what's called a modified risk product that's also under FDA review. Now, IQOS is also under the same restrictions as traditional cigarettes when it comes to advertising, possibly why a lot of people here in the U.S. haven't heard so much about it. Now, British American Tobacco's Glow product is now the chief rival internationally to IQOS. Last quarter, the company reported 17% growth of heated tobacco and a 3.7% decline in cigarettes. Japan Tobacco has a product called Plume. It had a nationwide rollout in Japan that started last month. That stock trades in Tokyo, and Imperial Brands also has a device called Pulse that's being tested in Japan as well. That stock trades in London. Now, according to UBS research, heated tobacco has a more than 70% conversion rate for former smokers. So you can expect a lot more companies try to get into this business, especially if it sees a lot of success here in the U.S. Back over to you.
Frank, that is true, although it's interesting to see big players try to enter new markets where so much of the discussion is about potential health risks or the study of potential health risks.
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the selling points, at least for Philip Morris and Altria, is that the FDA did say that this product has fewer toxic chemicals. However, the application to say it's safer than cigarettes is still under review. That's a very high bar to meet.
All right, Frank Holland, we'll watch that space closely. Getting awfully interesting. Thanks.
Now let's send it over to Sue Herrera for a CNBC News update at this hour. Sue.
Good morning, Leslie. Good morning, everyone. Here's what's happening at this hour. The International Atomic Energy Agency meeting in Geneva confirming that Iran is preparing to use more advanced centrifuges, which is another breach of limits set in the 2015 nuclear deal. But Iran had already announced that step as it tries to pressure European signatories to find a way to maintain oil shipments and ease the toll of U.S. sanctions. Thousands of students forming human chains outside schools across Hong Kong to push for more democratic reforms. This after violent weekend clashes in the territory. They were joined by graduates wearing protesters' trademark black shirts and masks. British Airways says it has to cancel almost all flights as a result of a pilot's 48-hour strike over pay. The carrier says it has offered the pilots a pay raise of 11.5% over 3 years.
Very, very sorry that due to the cynical actions of the pilots union, we found ourselves having to cancel flights affecting, indeed, thousands of passengers. This is by all means a known goal. It is punishing our customers first. It is punishing our brand.
You are up to date. That's the news update this hour, guys. I will send it back downtown to you. Leslie?
All right, Sue, thank you. When we return, the Florida Attorney General will join us exclusively next. A new multi-state antitrust probes against Google and Facebook. This Walk on the Street. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA net or protected, subject to availability and conditions.
Casa Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Nason and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Nurses like you love the RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Here's why.
It's an easy way to get your CPD hours.
There are loads of job opportunities on the day.
The free workshops are great for learning something new.
It's an event just for us. The RCNI Nursing Careers and Jobs Fair. Coming to London on the 17th and 18th of September. Register now for free entry. Search RCNI Events.
The hammer's coming down on Facebook, officially a coalition of attorneys general investigating possible antitrust violations, saying, quote, "We will use every investigative tool at our disposal to determine whether Facebook's actions have endangered consumer data, reduced the quality of consumers' choices, or increased the price of advertising." Joining us in a CNBC exclusive this morning is the Florida Attorney General, Ashley Moody. Ms. Moody, thanks so much for your time. Good morning.
Of course. Good morning.
We sort of established the scope of the probe in that intro, but can you help us understand on a ladder what is most important to the group of AGs?
Well, we announced on Friday that, and it's important to remember, this is a bipartisan group of attorneys general leading the investigation, 9 in total. And we're looking at the history of Facebook, how it's grown, its acquisitions, how that has affected competition, and really looking at how consumers have been affected. And we will use the lawyers in all of our offices, work together, and make sure we're communicating with the DOJ as we pursue this investigation.
Is the coalition of AGs, I mean, the reason that it exists, is it a comment on what has or has not been accomplished by either Congress or federal agencies?
I think it's a comment on the abilities of our individual offices, the legal talent, the laws that we have at our disposal in terms of going after when there may be antitrust concerns. And we all have common ground in that. I can tell you that in looking at the numerous acquisitions of Facebook, they've focused on companies that may not have been big enough at the time to have triggered review. And in hindsight, we need to make sure there wasn't intent to subvert free markets and competition. And that's what we're focusing on. That's what our lawyers are looking into. And it's not a normal practice for attorneys general to come out and start talking about investigations when they're launched. At least in my office in Florida, that's not something that we regularly do. But over time, as there have been numerous concerns with privacy, as consumers give up more of their privacy in order to use these social networking applications, we want to make sure that consumers and Floridians and the other states know that we're looking into this, and we will use all the tools at our disposal.
Historically, antitrust is centered on keeping prices low for consumers. With a lot of these tech companies, prices are low. With Google and Facebook, it's free if you don't account for the data as being counted as labor versus just exhaust. Do you think this will rewrite the standard for antitrust as you look at this? And how do you kind of reconcile that with the historic test for antitrust?
And you have identified the key difference in this antitrust approach. These platforms are supposedly free. I would argue they're not free at all. In fact, as Facebook has become larger and larger and larger, you look at what the price really is. The price of relinquishing more of your personal information, the higher price that are demanded for advertising, the higher number of minutes you have to focus on ads in order to use the product. And so our definition of price and how we gauge whether or not that price has been affected within this growing alleged monopoly, we have to look at it through a different lens than we have traditionally.
People are looking at former coalitions of AGs and the way in which they tackle things like tobacco and pharma and mortgage lending. Is there a case study that you're trying to model this group after?
Well, as with the last question, you can see this is an entirely different way of looking at whether or not we are dealing with a monopoly. And what that means is we have to bring the resources together of all the states that have the capability to do that. Not every state has the talent or the size in order to dedicate resources to this issue. But I can tell you that Florida is committed to making sure that consumers are protected and that we do, in fact, have competition among these social networking platforms.
You know, you mentioned resources. The federal government is already expending some of them as well in similar investigations, both at the FTC and the Department of Justice. Is there any overlap or cooperation between the states and the federal government, or are you duplicating efforts that you don't necessarily need to be duplicating?
Well, I can tell you anytime we have a number of states that get together and lead these investigations, it is to prevent duplicating effort that we don't need to duplicate. We have met with the Department of Justice. We will continue to share information as we work through this investigation. And depending upon what we ultimately find, that may indicate how we further collaborate. But I can tell you right now, the states that are leading the investigation are working together well. And as we receive the information from subpoenas, we'll be able to better determine where we are and what types of remedies we might be seeking.
Is it going to stop at Facebook?
I can tell you I'm meeting with attorney generals as soon as I leave this interview, and we'll have further announcements today.
All right, we'll be looking for more on that. Attorney General of Florida, Ashley Moody. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's bring in Mozelle Thompson, former FTC commissioner and former Facebook advisory board member. Also with us, Scott Hemphill is the former antitrust bureau chief in the New York AG's office, who also consults with lawmakers on big tech's monopolistic practices. Gentlemen, good to see you both.
Thanks for having me.
Mozelle, thoughts on what this is about?
Well, what's interesting is that attorneys general regularly get involved in antitrust actions, but they usually do it in a coordinated fashion. It's not clear what the roles are going to be here yet, and it's not clear the extent of their involvement. I recognize, for example, that states have limited resources, and as you pointed out, that the federal government is already involved in this. So let's see if their approach is different. I thought it was interesting hearing today about fundamental change in antitrust law. I'm not sure that is something that I've heard expressed before, but it will take a lot of people to be involved in order for that to happen.
So you think they're over their skis as far as what DOJ has defined as antitrust?
I think it's very early yet, but what you also see, for example, you saw in the FTC what they've done recently in terms of privacy in their rulings, that there's a split even in the commission about what they think the role of size and power is in technology. So we're going to see that develop over time. And what I recognize is the attorney generals, they run for office, so that they're involved, but there also may be an array of points of view on this particular subject.
Scott, does this make sense to you? I mean, particularly in light of the resources question, when you have the federal government looking at it, and there's plenty of things I would assume that state AGs can go after in terms of a company that's price gouging or things that would impact the consumer as well.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. States have a long-standing history of getting involved in major antitrust cases with investigations that often ultimately lead to cases being filed. I think the most famous example here would be Microsoft, where not only DOJ pursued a monopolization case, but also a coalition of states were working side by side and to a substantial degree hand in hand with the federal government.
Why is it that Microsoft hasn't been wrapped up in this most recent round of scrutiny in terms of tech?
Well, I mean, we're in a new world. We're interested in platforms, especially online platforms that sit as middlemen, often between users and purchasers on the one hand and advertisers on the other. This raises new concerns that are familiar in certain ways, but have some new aspects as well. And we have new last 15, 20 years, firms with large market positions and possibly conduct that needs to be investigated.
Now, you point to the large market conditions. Regulators approved Facebook's acquisitions of WhatsApp and Instagram, for example, because the market environment didn't look at the time like it does today. If you're a deal maker or a regulator or a lawyer advising companies today, how can you pursue deals when in the future you come under attack for the market environment changing?
It's a good question. And as your question anticipates, a big part of the investigation with Facebook is likely to be to look at these previous acquisitions, especially of Instagram in 2012 and WhatsApp in 2014. I think by and large, deal makers can rest easy to the extent that Facebook is unusual in a lot of ways. For one thing, as General Moody suggested, Facebook might be a monopolist. If you're not a monopolist or have a strong prospect of becoming one, the investigation into Facebook probably doesn't have much relevance for your business.
You know, but also part of that is understanding that those companies those subsidiaries may not have been as strong without the investment and development of Facebook. So you have to balance that out too. That's an interesting challenge, and I don't know what's going to happen there. What I also think is really important here is that I hope that no one loses sight of what the middle of the bell curve is. In other words, that a lot of people are using these technologies, they're using them well and successfully, and it has some real benefits to people in connecting with in ways that they never used to before. It's going to be an interesting challenge to balance what people think might be harms with what they think might be benefits. That's part of the challenge of public service.
And Scott, how long, in your sense, will these investigations actually take? I know that's a hard question to answer, but I ask it in light of investors at least wondering, when are we really going to know, yes or no, whether there's going to be an opportunity to move forward here for state AGs or the federal government.
Yeah, so I would not expect either a lawsuit or a conclusion of the investigation in this calendar year. Antitrust investigations are big, heavy, expensive things. The Facebook investigation might be a little bit different in the sense that it's been widely reported that Facebook is in the process of integrating their messaging services, and one possible implication of that would be to make antitrust action more difficult. Anticipating that potential problem, you might expect regulators, whether they are state AGs or the Federal Trade Commission or the DOJ, to act more quickly than they otherwise would.
What's being said finally at agencies today about this?
Well, I think one of the challenges you have is that you have differences of opinion, real differences of opinion, not only between agencies, but within agencies. Like I said before, the split at the FTC about their view of technology. We're going to see how that plays out. But at the same time, you also have very interesting discussions happening on the Hill, where this issue has definitely been politicized and will continue to be throughout the next year.
We're bracing for that, and this adds a new wrinkle. Gentlemen, thanks for that. Scott and Moselle, good to see you both.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. By the way, a quick programming note. Louisiana's Attorney General, Jeff Landry, is going to join us later on today on the closing bell at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, so join us for that. Meantime, a letter from the FDA to the CEO of Juul, the electronic nicotine delivery system product, talking about requirements from the FDA if you are a new tobacco product that you undergo pre-market review and receive authorization from the FDA permitting the product sale and distribution prior to being offered or delivered for sale into interstate commerce, asking for a response from Juul to the FDA. But it just adds to the layers of scrutiny that Juul, because they're the biggest, but also a number of other players have gotten in recent days, guidelines from the CDC, and then this strange case of literally hundreds of vaping illnesses to which doctors seem to have no real clue of what the cause is.
And it'll be interesting to see what this does and when it has an impact on their business. Juul is one of the most highly valued unicorns there is right now. I think it's about $60 billion privately based on its recent investments. So if you have so much overhang, I mean, this is a nightmare scenario for the company as it grapples with the safety of its products and the intense scrutiny that it's receiving from regulators.
It also figures into those talks, I think, potentially between Philip Morris International and Altria, of course, merger of equals that we've talked about that is being negotiated still. Juul is a significant economic stake for Altria, might figure in its future, although they have no real control there. They do have some board seats. Well, actually, they haven't gotten the full approval yet, I think, yet from Hart-Scott. I don't think they've gotten it yet, but they will eventually have board seats and the like for the 35% stake that they bought for $12.8 billion.
Certainly one to watch. As we go to break, take a look at shares of Chipotle getting an upgrade at Wedbush. The firm also raising its price target on the stock to $980 per share. Chipotle already up around 100% so far in 2019. More Squawk on the Street when we return.
I can. The two words whispered at the start of every race. Every new job. And attempt to parallel park. Each new draft of every novel. The finishing touch on every masterpiece. It is humanity's official two-word war cry. Words that move us all forward. The same two words that Capital Group believes have the power to improve lives, and that for over 85 years have inspired us to help people achieve their financial goals. Talk to your advisor or consultant for investment risks and information.
Cover it up. That's what I did when I started losing my hair. Then I realized I could actually do something. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And it only costs $1 a day, which means no more covering up. Get started at Keeps.com.
I believe ETFs are a great way to invest in the market. I just don't believe in market cap-weighted ETFs. My research shows how fundamentals can lead to performance, and that's exactly how WisdomTree builds their ETFs. To me, it's a better way to invest. Legacy ETFs that track the market? That's yesterday. Modern alpha ETFs built for performance? That's WisdomTree.
Carefully consider the fund's objectives, risks, charges, and expenses before investing. Obtain a prospectus at wisdomtree.com. Read it carefully.
What did you learn about money management as a young man?
The goal was that when I stopped playing, whatever I made on the court would be replaced by whatever I built while I was still playing. A lot of people are just looking for the quick hit all the time, and all the while kind of ignoring the slow growth potential at 5%, 7%, 9%. There's just such an opportunity at a young age to get your money to work for you. I would say be disciplined with what you put away monthly. Start it, because then 10, 12 years later, you're going to be happy you did.
A bullish trend could be unfolding in one economic indicator. A top analyst explains what that could mean for markets on tradingnation.cnbc.com. More Squawk on the Street is coming up.
So Schwab taught me about four-legged option strategies. I'm going to go with an iron butterfly spread on that fintech stock.
Nice. I just tried an iron condor.
Oh,
only spread I've been introduced to is this onion chive.
It's time to trade up to Schwab, the firm invested in helping you become a better trader. All for just $4.95 per online equity trade, plus 65 cents per options contract. Expect more from your firm. Schwab, the better place for traders.
It was Sophie's big day. By the way, she's the next Mozart. As usual, we were behind schedule. But Sophie's enthusiasm could not be dampened. Not even by a runaway donut. We powered through it in our Toyota Prius. Because the star's gotta shine. No matter what.
It's unbelievable what you can do in the Prius. Toyota. Let's go places.
China trade tariffs impacting everything from big tech to lobster sales. Our Contessa Brewer joins us live from Maine with more. Contessa.
Hi there, Leslie. Yeah, coastal Maine, as you know, is famous for its lobster. And when the boats bring back in their hauls, it turns out these guys fetch a lot more in China than they do in Kennebunkport, Maine. It's one reason why the lobster industry here invested so heavily in opening the Chinese market. And business was booming until last summer, when the trade war erupted and the tariffs were slapped on American lobster into China. Fast forward here to the first half of the year, and we saw exports to China plummet by 60%. The dealers in Maine saw their sales plummet. They've had to lay off workers and cut hours.
We have many less employees, probably about half of our wholesale staff. I have more time to spend in my garden this summer, so that's great. But no, my sales will be down 45% this year.
Well, you know who's really benefiting from this trade war with China? The Canadians, because their exports to China have gone up 40% in the first half of this year. They've invested heavily in their infrastructure to make that trade even more efficient. The problem is the distributors here in Maine say they've lost Chinese customers to Canada. They don't think they're getting back. Guys?
So, Contessa, if they're not able to export as much as they used to over to China, is there an excess supply of lobsters in Maine, and therefore have prices come down as a result?
Interestingly, they have actually increased their exports to Canada by 130%. So, Leslie, there's people on the ground, both in Maine and in Canada, who have said to us they suspect these Maine lobster are being shipped to Canada, packaged there, sent to China as caught in Canada, thereby avoiding tariffs. But apparently the enforcement on origin and labeling has been somewhat lax. So there's no proof that that's actually happening. What do you think of this guy?
Are lobstermen losing their jobs as a result of all this?
Well, lobstermen are like farmers. They're actually in family businesses that they've invested in over a long time. So they're coming back. They are finding markets, but the lobster here don't catch the same premium as lobster in China. The dealers say they have these relationships with the lobstermen. They have to keep those, so they keep buying the lobster, even though they're not selling the lobster for as much in Connecticut, say, or in New York City as they would if they got sent over to China, where it's a premium product.
All right, Contessa Brewer over in Maine for us. Thank you. Now let's send it over to Morgan Brennan with a special look at what's coming up on Squawk Alley. Morgan.
Hey, Leslie, we've got a big show coming up. We're revving up for it right now. Scott Wine, Chairman and CEO of Polaris, is going to join us exclusively. The company is celebrating 65 years. We're going to talk about all of these vehicles and products, also the health of the consumer, trade and tariffs, so much more coming up. Leslie, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan, keeping our eyes on AT&T. That stock is one of the top gainers today. Guys, what do you make of all of this stock price reaction with regard to Elliott being the key fulcrum here in the situation? I have to imagine that if any other activist came in, we wouldn't see this type of stock price reaction. You can see now up 3.4%.
You made clear the reputation Elliott has for getting their hands dirty on these stakes, the size of the stake, the relative under ownership, as David has mentioned, about the name itself. And then probably the suppressed stock price over the past few months, right? David is quite well coiled for a move like this.
Yeah, although AT&T, to be fair, has been a pretty strong performer this year, an underperformer in years past. There's no doubt there have been plenty of questions about the acquisition strategy that Elliott makes a focus and part of its letter over the last number of years, and whether that's been worth having done, kind of as I pointed out, sort of moving away from the wireless business as opposed to embracing it the way their competitor Verizon has. But the shares are up again, as you see it, although not nearly as much as they were earlier. And I think that's interesting here as well. Perhaps more of a wait-and-see approach from some investors. The key will be what kind of engagement Elliott gets with the board. I think that's got to be sort of what the focus is. You know, the lead director is Matt Rose, of course, known for having run Burlington, we'll see where they go there and whether, in fact, there's some alignment in terms of the two and what Elliott's asking for and what perhaps some of the board thinks. You know, the board and management don't necessarily have to all be aligned as well. And that's, if you sense it as an activist that there is some rupture there or at least some room, you may want to try and exploit it.
Elliott also known for their intense research. They use tremendous resources in order to get their way, and they are known for getting their way in fights. They were able to raise $5 billion in 24 hours as a result of some of their successes in the activism world. They've gone after Warren Buffett and taking on that Encore acquisition last year. They've taken on Argentina, gotten their way there. However,
Samsung. Yep. I mean,
Arconic.
If you talk to Jonathan Bush, of course, he has some views. We have, in terms of at least what
Athena Health.
They have tried, right, on Athena. They have tried to have a sort of a kinder, gentler approach of late, I think it's fair to say, than some of the more bullying or scary tactics they might have employed in the past.
And I think it's worth noting, we don't often see them. I mean, this is their largest position ever, and we very rarely see them, if ever, in a company that's this size. So while they have been successful in the past, and you mentioned this earlier, David, AT&T has fees to shell out to prevent this type of behavior.
They do, if there is a lack of cooperation. And you're right, it's a mega cap, and they have not typically played in the mega cap space the way we've seen some other big name activists choose to do, whether it's Bill Ackman years ago with P&G and or Trian, of course, with P&G and many other names as well, who has gone down that road more often.
Which cost P&G hundreds of millions of dollars to fend off Nelson Peltz. And even after all of that, both sides spending hundreds of millions of dollars or millions of dollars on Peltz's side, it still was an incredibly close contest.
So close. But P&G's done great since Peltz joined the board.
That's for sure.
So there you go.
Wow. When we come back this morning, Apple's gearing up for its big event tomorrow. We're going to tell you what to expect. Goldman, of course, doing well, about a 5-week high as yields are up. We're back in a moment.
Real-time exchange sector zone is sponsored by Sector Spider ETFs.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. we'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Bacardi is back, bringing a party with an unmissable lineup and tasty rum cocktails to London. With Bacardi's new Sound of Rum crew, featuring live sets from One Asen and P Money, MCing from Harry Pinero, and loads more. The perfect recipe for an epic night out. Casa Bacardi at Box Park Croydon on September 14th. For more info and to get your tickets now, head to boxpark.co.uk. Do what moves you. Over 18s only. Drink aware for the facts.
Did you know Currys PC World do business? Saving your business up to 30% with mega deals on computers and printers, electricals, large screen TVs, and even more. Top brands like HP, Microsoft, Epson, Sony. And if you find it cheaper from any major retailer, we'll match it. Get these deals before they're gone. Must end soon. Visit your nearest store or pcworldbusiness.co.uk/megadeals. T's and C's apply. Excludes Inc. and third-party sellers. Visit website for price promise details. Claim within 7 days.
Make sure you're uni-ready with our huge range of practical essentials and home-from-home comforts and get 10% off for a limited time.